News to get into today. We're going to talk about current rankings in terms of rating for DPS, how that's looking post all the changes. We're also going to look at Mythic Plus, how that's looking, what the meta's looking like, and what the best dungeons are right now to run in Mythic Plus. We got a ton of statistics to get into, but before we do, let's look at some trading post shit, why don't we? Compiling, looking at the trading post for April, we got the end of trading post reward item. Yeah, anticlimactic to say the least. It's a mask. It's a Birdie Boy mask. And if you're into the whole like Mardi Gras-esque look, this is looks like it's based a lot on the Dark Moon Fair, right? So it's got some Dark Moon Fair looks to it. You know, not the worst mask we've gotten, but it's not my favorite either. Yeah, I prefer the mounts and the really cool stuff as your end of reward. But Amani mask, yeah, maybe. What's wrong today? Is Sam okay? I'm never okay. What are you talking about? I'm literally riding a mental edge most of the time I'm streaming. Besides that, I will say there are really cool items to be had in this trading post, including this bad boy. I mean, absolutely glorious. A pure cinema mount here. This is the perfect, I don't know how you would describe it. What are those fair Renaissance fair, you know, mount? Like, I love it. It's a Jousty Boy mount. I want this mount. It's a freaking beautiful mount. Dark Moon Clown Show horse. I mean, I would say it's more like a jousting horse, not a clown show. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Nice little transmog here. If you want to play as, Ratatash the Brown, you know, you can do that too. Yeah, that's what this reminds me of. Definitely gives me vibes of Lord of the Rings here. And then you can get some of these weapons. A lot of this is the same theme here. You notice the theme. It is very much Dark Moon Fair-esque. Cool weapons, nice stuff, and nothing too crazy, but I'm definitely going to get this mount. This mount is absolutely freaking badass, and I do want it, and I'm going to go get it. It's like Invincible, but Sam will actually be able to get this one. Thanks for reminding me that I don't have Invincible. Okay, moving on to the numbers here. Let's get into these numbers. These numbers are important because these are all post the big changes that went into effect. So there's going to be a lot of movement up and down from these classes. Let's see exactly where everybody stands now. So here we go. We're looking at overall damage. So Windwalker Monk at the top. Yeah, Windwalker Monk is doing great. We see Outlaw Rogue, Fire Mage, Shadow Priest, and Furry Warriors. Yes, you heard me right. Furry Warriors rounding out the top 5 there. Looking pretty darn good. At the bottom, we see some familiar faces. Augmentation Evoker, always hard to track. Arcane Mage, Survival Hunter, Frost Mage, Balanced Druid. So, interestingly enough, don't disgrace Lord of the Rings, Sam. Never. One of the greatest stories ever told is Lord of the Rings. Overall, I see some changes here. Sub-Titty dropping a little bit. Outlaw Rogue doing much, much better. As far as Rogue goes, honestly, throughout the entire expansion, they have had at least one spec that has been in the top 2. I would say the entire expansion so far. So Rogue has been doing pretty damn good. Paladin, Retribution Paladin, mid-tier, but I believe if we look at the next numbers here for AoE, I think they're doing much better there. Need more Pally buffs? I think more Pally buffs will come. But I never feel too bad for Paladins. I feel like they're doing pretty good. I lied. Retribution Paladin's doing worse than AoE, okay? So this is actually damage to bosses. So this is their AoE damage. If we're looking at single target damage, Retribution Paladin not doing so good. So yeah, that makes sense. They are more AoE based right now. If we're looking single target, Fire Mage. Fire Mage taking the top spot. I've seen some mages come in and pump lately. So this entire week I've been noticing mages have been pumping pretty hard, especially Fire Mages. Arms Warrior, Windwalker Monk again. Windwalker Monk doing fantastic on both sides. Mythic Plus rating. We are in the age of the Monk again. It's good to see for them. Unholy Death Knight also have noticed them pumping a lot in single target boss fights and everything else, so these are doing pretty damn good. Your details meters tell a very different story. Well, that's always the thing, right? At the end of the day, if you look at where Retribution Paladin sits here and where Fire Mage sits here, really, there's only a 5%, 6% difference between the two. At the end of the day, player skill matters more than this 6% difference in DPS. If you want to look at the top-end keys and the top-end key pushers and mythic raiders, okay, then maybe if you're a top parser, this shit will make a difference. But when it comes to raiding as a regular person, we're pulling together a Heroic Pug raid, player skill is far more important than a 6% difference in a parse meter. So these are fun to look at for what they are, but at the end of the day, player skill matters way more. Going to Havoc Demon Hunter here, Feral Druid doing much better now with all of the buffs and things they've seen. If you guys remember at the beginning of this expansion, they were, not bottom tier. Outlaw Rogue, Beast Mastery Hunter doing much, much better for Hunters. Shadow Priest, Furry Warriors here. And then at the bottom, we see Balanced Druid, Arcane Mage, Elemental Shaman, Frost Mage, Retribution Paladin. Again, player skill matters most. Okay, here we go. Biggest movers up and down. You see there's a lot of movement on the chart this week with all these changes going into effect. The biggest mover up after these changes went into effect is Furry Warriors. Yeah, that's right. Fury moving into the top 5 here. They were 6 spots lower previous to these changes, so they're getting a lot of love here. And the biggest movers down after these changes, Destruction Warlock and Arms Warrior dropping off a cliff there. 7 drops. 7 drops down. A lot of these other specs here moved up 1 to 2 spots. Affliction Warlock, actually second biggest mover down, 6 spots here. Warlocks have been, all right. They still got to bring them for utility reasons a lot of times in Raid. But, if you're skilled, again, you can always pump. Anyone can be top DPS at a bad group cadence. Yeah, that's true. Overall, interesting numbers. We'll keep looking at these throughout the season. Now, getting into Mythic Plus specifically, how the dungeon balancing and everything is looking. We did see that Blizzard put in more nerfs to these dungeons, and what you can really gather from this stuff here when looking at Mythic Plus runs for all regions week 3, right? Comparing to week 2, not a huge difference, but what we do see is, man, Cinderbrew Meadery, people are loving it. So the red on this chart right here is actually showing you, what's it called? How, basically this is breaking down in terms of people not completing the key, and then people completing the key. So blue means they completed it, red means they didn't, and then the bar overall is showing how many times people are running this damn thing. So Cinderbrew Meadery is doing this top right now. People love that dungeon. They're running it the most. Red is the bricked keys, yeah. And then it looks like Theater of Pain is the least. But one thing you'll notice compared to previous seasons, where, Mists of Tyranna Scythe on this chart, if we looked at it, was like off the chart and then all the others were way down low. There's a really good balance across the board. Yes, Cinderbrew Meteor is the most run, but the difference between the top and the bottom is not that huge, which means there is really good balance this season. Probably some of the best balance we've seen between what the favorite dungeon and it was the least favorite dungeon across the board. Overall, I will also say keys being bricked a lot less this season. And that's because it's really an easier season. Blizzard's done their best to balance this shit out. They continue to nerf a lot of the pain points in some of these dungeons, so it's looking a lot better. Yeah, the red is the Sam contribution. Okay, Libor. Yeah, true. Again, looking across the board, looking pretty good. Dark Flame Cleft is one that was one of my favorites early on. Looks like it's dropped down a little bit since some of the nerfs to the others. Priory of the Sacred Flame, one of my favorites. Second most run dungeon right now. And actually, when you compare these two, maybe Priory gets bricked a little bit less than Cinderbrew. But interestingly enough, as I said, all of these are really balanced out pretty nicely and doing really good across the board. Biggest movers up, more people are running Priory of the Sacred Flame since the recent changes. And biggest mover down, less people are running Dark Flame Cleft. As I said, it was the most run prior to these changes, and now is kind of mid-tier. But again, not a big difference from the top and the bottom here. Now, looking at the classes overall, what's being run the most, the meta basically of this current season. One thing you'll notice whenever you look at these charts is, I'll zoom in here, is the higher the key gets, the more meta things become, right? The more meta things become, and that's because high-end key pushers are gonna limit their groups to what they consider to give them the best chance at actually completing the key. So looking across the board, if we want to see what the meta actually is, a plus 17 key, you're bringing a Vengeance Demon Hunter. Right, that's pretty evident here. And you'll notice the deeper you get here, the more Vengeance Demon Hunters people are bringing. Of course, it is the meta tank right now. 13% of all 17 keys are bringing a Vengeance Demon Hunter. Damn, Pally is falling off. Well, yeah, at the top end. So that's one thing you'll notice, right? Paladin at the top end is just not being used, right? Nobody wants to bring a Paladin if they're running a plus 17 key, which is interesting. Besides that, we see a Disciplined Priest coming in a lot here. Fire Mage, of course, the top DPS. We were just looking at him. Top DPS overall since the changes went into effect. Balanced Druid also doing really good. That's one that's showing up a lot in these plus 17 keys. Unholy Death Knight, the most bought DPS class right now in top end keys. Unholy Death Knight doing fantastic. Obviously, the utility of grips and everything, also always nice for them to bring. Anti-magic shell. It's just a lot of good stuff that you get out of an Unholy Death Knight, besides the fact that they are absolute pumpers right now. Yeah, a Retribution Paladin just not showing up. Only 0.9% of keys at a plus 17 or higher are actually bringing these. Elemental Shaman doing good. One of the best DPS right now in the game. Also, Mistweaver Monk showing up pretty decently at top-end keys. And then Protection Warrior being the second most used here. You'll notice for Death Knights, no Blood DK is being brought at these. So Again, and no, the second most tank here is Protection Warrior. So really, it's a Vengeance Demon Hunter's game right now. They are the top meta. Now, if we're looking just at, your typical mid-tier key, like a +7, that's where you'll see a lot of people running, or a +10. You'll notice, yeah, it's a little bit more diverse here. Much more Paladins showing up in these. Paladins, again, we looked at the statistics, most played class in the game. So, yeah, of course, you're going to see more Paladins showing up here. Much more balanced if you look at all this across the board. We're still seeing a lot of Retribution, what's it called? Retribution showing up here. Balanced Druid. Fire Mage, again, showing up. And, of course, that makes sense. But a much more balanced distribution, as we've seen, when you're looking at more, human keys, more of the regular Joes running keys around here. You'll see that typically to 7 to 9. So what keys are people actually running? Well, here's the breakdown of these statistics right here. +10, of course, that's going to be a highly run key. That's where you're going to get your best your best vault possible. You're going to push that stuff. Beyond a +10, really, it's just about IO ranking, so you're just pushing that as hard as you can. +7, also where you're going to get your crests and everything, so you're going to see a lot of people pushing those keys. But overall, bricked keys, yeah, a lot of +10s getting bricked, it looks like. What percentage is this? I'd have to freaking do division and shit. I'm not going to do math. But yeah, seeing a lot of brick keys at a +10. The most bricked key is a +10, which makes sense because people usually are pushing themselves as hard as they can to actually get into a +10, first of all. And a lot of times they're showing up and they're not actually ready for a +10. But what I will say is look at that entry. Pretty damn good. I mean, not as many people doing a +2, but as an entry-level key, you're seeing a little bit less bricking going on than previous seasons, which means the barrier to entry is a little bit easier. The affixes, as we know, don't kick in until a +4, so it's expected that you're going to see less keys bricked at the lower end here, but still, keys will get bricked because people don't know what they're doing at a +2 a lot of times. Visually, it looks about 25%. I agree. If I had to guess here, about 25% of keys at +10 are getting bricked, interestingly enough. But overall, this season's distribution so much better, difficulty so much better. The meta balance, again, for the regular Joes out there, so much better. Looking pretty good in terms of distribution. Vengeance Demon Hunter really taking the cake at the higher end keys for tanking, unfortunately for Blood DKs. But overall, great season so far. Great distribution of dungeons being run. I think this is looking pretty damn good going forward. We'll see if they keep to make the changes that they continue to do. But that is all in terms of news.